Hey, Neil fam, happy Tuesday to you. It is Tuesday, August 26, 2025. The market just closed, and I've got a lot to get into and cover. So let's just jump right in. First off, we're going to talk stock price and stock price action. This is the 4 a.m. Eastern time, that 5-minute incremental window I've been watching, and then the 8 o'clock one. Both were green this morning for NIO Stock. Also, although it's only showing 112 million shares traded, the chart exchange, which is what I like to track or use to track data and show things off of, was frozen for part of today. So I think the trade volume, including pre-market, was well over 130 million shares traded. Not surprisingly, with a big trade volume day of, or at least over 100 million shares traded, we saw NIO Stock move up. And even though yesterday was a bit suspicious, I wonder if there was a little carryover to offset that today. It's possible. I don't know, just thinking aloud here. But I also want to point this out. The recent uptrend that we're in, if we start it back around July 10th, which is when we started seeing more of the bigger trade volume days come in, we saw the stock move from about 375 to now it's in the range that's the highest it's been actually after hours. As I'm recording, it's $6.71, right around that area. And that's the highest it's been all year. And so here's why I want to point out this part. I mentioned yesterday in the video that the low side, $5.19, is what I was watching, up to $7.21 for this week. And this is my thinking with that. Right now, what I've got on screen is from about August of 2024 until the most recent data that we have on the FTD side of things. The FTDs are represented by the white lines, and this only goes through July 30th. We have to wait about a month on the data. It's always lagged and delayed. That's why we never really know what's happening behind the scenes in real time. But the reason, and I actually did several videos talking about the 519 level, which this is kind of an indicator here, and what happened for the stock price to come down after these this 519 range was hit a couple of times in March of 2025 is all of this deluge, this huge and very concentrated FTD data that came in. And with that, the stock price went down to actually the lowest it's been here in several years. But if we go back a little bit, because once we sort of easily cleared that 519 level, I started thinking, okay, what's the next one to kind of watch to the upside? And this is just using, my 3 short-term indicators. So this is not your TA. It is not at all the way that I look or think about things. But if we go back to this is when it was 721 was where it closed on this day, but this was back in October of 2024. So we're actually now out into last year. But here's the interesting thing. Look at this huge spike, this FTD spike that came in after that. And it came in on the 14th of October is when it was reported. The high here was October 2nd. Now, broker dealers, and if there are bad actors who want to manipulate, and they have kind of a pass-through reg show, long story I'm not going to get into here, but basically they have up to 35 calendar days where they can let these go. So one of the ways that I'm thinking about things is within at least 35 calendar days, when I see this could have been very intentional to take this down. But we haven't seen anything this high in a while. However, we've seen a couple. But the other thing that you've got to recognize, or at least that I pay attention to, is look at the volume for this day. It's just over 80 million shares traded. So under 100 million shares traded. And yet there were almost 5 million FTDs that were reported on that day. Now, here's the nice thing. If we now come back to this uptrend, this is one of the reasons that the trade volume remains such an easy indicator for me, is as we've seen more elevated trade volume days, in other words, 100 million shares traded or more on a single day. We've had more of those days just since this uptrend started in July, from about July 10th until the present. Again, today is August 26th as I'm recording this. This is a sign that even with higher FTDs, it may not matter. The shorts may not be able to keep this thing down. And so that's one of the reasons I won't be surprised if one of 2 things happens here in the short term. If one, we do see NIO make a move up to and maybe even through that 721 level, $7.21 level, or if we continue to see the elevated trade volume days, I won't be surprised if at some point here before the end of this year in 2025, if some of those shorts don't just go long, because a lot of them have their position on both sides. And so while it was an easy short, I think they were sitting back just making their money and enjoying it. But at some point, I won't be surprised to see some, or maybe even a lot of them, go long. And I'll do a follow-up video at some point in the future once we get more data on that, but that's always off. So this is an update. I actually put new information into this, and I have also made this, I added this to the possible manipulation, I think it's possible manipulation videos playlist that I've got. The reason I'm updating this is now a simple kind of one-off resource that you can go to and dig into things. Now, just today, the morning of August 26th, there was a call, Wes Christian, who is the attorney that shorts do not want to see at trial. And he was talking about how one of the things they've decided is that going after spoofing is easier than going after naked shorting. And he actually explains in this share that I put within the description from this video, he actually explains that and breaks that down. So this was an earlier Twixter Spaces is what I call them. Twixter is the platform. Used to be Twitter, now it's X. But this was an earlier Spaces. The other Spaces I also shared from today. And then since he's now talking about the spoofing and the way that they're going after that, I thought, okay, now I should probably offer a little bit more. So I pulled up some more of the spoofing cases and history and articles. And yes, there are two very big firms that that have been named and that are also shorts in NIO. Okay, enough about that. Now let's talk and move on to the insurance registration data. NIO for the week of August 18th through the 24th came in with a 7,600 number. And this is a wonderful, wonderful sign to set up for what we should see in a new monthly delivery record. I've kept it here because William Lee said that soon we would be seeing 9,000 or more. Excellent chance we see that next week. But by the way, this is sort of the current month and how we're looking. Now, this 7,900 was a carryover. It was the best carryover week NIO's ever had, meaning there were some days at the end of a month and to start the next month. And that was to start this month of August. So that was a strong number. This was the best. I think it tied for the first place with the first full week of data for NIO ever. This was also a new record for that particular week. And now with the 7,600 number, we have yet another record. And with another week of data to go, here's how we compare or are comparing to the monthly delivery record, which was back in, oops, wait a minute. I didn't cue that up right. Hold on, hang on. Let me find it. I'll get us to the data. Don't worry about it. 10,700 is the number we're looking for. That was the last week in December, which still remains the monthly delivery record. Here it is. So the comparative weeks, the carryover week I didn't cover because we got monthly delivery data back in January, but it was not as strong as that 7,900 number. And then the 6,100 number was a bigger number. And then the 7,200 number was a bigger number. And now the 7,600 number is a slightly bigger number. And the best part is NIO doesn't even need a 10,700 number on the weekly side to come in with a new record. And what's, I think, even better is when we're going to have NIO come in with this probably almost certain, I think at this point, new monthly delivery record, which will be reported September 1st. And then they have earnings September 2nd. I think this is just, things are aligning really nicely. And I'm going to offer this because I know a lot of people talk about the fundamentals. I do think they matter, but I do think that in the shorter term, when I'm talking about the three short-term stock price indicators, when there has been low trade volume, the fundamentals haven't seemed to matter with the elevated FTDs. So now that we're seeing more trade volume on a lot more of these days with 100 million shares, I think that really sets things up much better for the fundamentals to have a positive impact on stock price, if that makes sense. Again, I'm trying to cover a lot here and also get through it in a timely fashion. So let's talk about the breakdown for the week for NIO, Onvo, and Firefly. A couple of thoughts here. We've got Firefly and on the bottom, and then NIO. Now, this is NIO, of course, not delivering the refresh ES8s yet. And those numbers, I think, are going to be really strong. So this isn't even, the best that we're going to see NIO in the upcoming months. We've got Factory 3 about to come online, and that's going to help with the ES8s, of course, and with everything, I think. So things are aligning beautifully. This is the Onvo right now. They're higher numbers. I'll be curious once the ES8 comes out if those don't pop up and maybe even surpass. I do think, and hopefully this is the one. Yes, this is my next train of thought where I wanted to go. So I'm glad this is the Onvo data. I think that Onvo is finally, for me, the three big picture or long-term things that I've been tracking. The first one is market awareness, brand awareness. The company and the brands need to be known even within China. And I think Onvo is finally helping NIO become better known across China. I still think there's a ways to go, but it's really nice to see some of these things. And I think the eyes on Onvo are actually going to turn more eyes and more buyers onto NIO as well. So I think rather than the short term, what some people maybe think is cannibalizing sales from NIO with Onvo, I think that more eyes overall are going to see NIO and Onvo as a result of seeing Onvo and then buy NIO. Remember, BMW, Mercedes, and Audi are still selling hundreds of thousands of gas vehicles in the Chinese market. And in the future, they will not be able to do that. So NIO has a huge market share piece that they can still take. So that's very, very positive. But on this particular, one of the reasons I like pulling the data in this way is this is the L60 here. And this would have been that first full week, second full week, third full week here in the month of August. And so the comparable weeks would have been right over here, and then here, and then here. And so there is a slight uptrend even within this one model, even month over month. Very positive. And then if that's the case, this was our carryover week, which I think is the highest we've ever seen, probably dating back to that December record for Onvo L60. So let's see what next week comes in with. Usually by the end of the month, or at the end of the month, we see the best numbers come in from NIO as a whole in that final week. So very excited to see what those numbers are. Obviously, the L90 continues to just crush it. And so again, kind of back to that point that I made about the market awareness, the brand awareness, people have to know about the brands so that they can then, take more market share. This is the retail volume of SUVs in China. And here's, I just want to point this out. You've got the L90 and the L60. I believe they're both top 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes. Let's go. NIO and Onvo. Baby steps to greatness, as I like to say. How about the retail volume of sedans? Now we're talking about the NIO brand, and we've got the ET5 Touring still, or rather in the top 5. And then I think the ET5, ET5 is here as well. So both of those ranking. And I don't know, I love the positioning. And being long-term with this thing is exactly, things are aligning beautifully. And the stock price, I think, is just going to be a little more fun from here on out to track. So William Lee with the Post, and this is as close as he's going to do with respect to hyping anything. He's kind of quietly letting people know that, hey, the ES8 is going to sell. And so again, we're going to get to see those numbers start coming in September. In Factory 3 coming online. How about this? NIO, when I first started looking into NIO and researching NIO, was back in 2020 in the summer. And my hope was that this would be a true IDE, an innovative-driven enterprise. That means a company that can have a large global footprint, but would have to invest a lot of money before they would become profitable. And this is a nod to why I think, and I've got 3 things lined up here that I'm going to share. This is why I think NIO is a unicorn. We have never seen a company like this before. They do so many things so well. So here you've got the AI play, Nomi, of course. And then next up, you've got the energy play. And this is going to be really fun to track. This is something that wasn't even on my radar at the beginning. The thing that I thought was compelling was the battery as a service. But now I'm thinking, okay, how massive can the energy play be within China and then outside of China in other markets? I think it's very, very difficult to try and put any valuation on it, but I think it's really hard to ignore for those of us paying attention. So that's the energy play. And then, oh yeah, how for a first time out developing a chip surpassing NVIDIA and still keeping such a low and quiet profile that folks don't know who the manufacturer is. And I have my ideas, but I'm not going to speculate or talk about them. Look, this is, I think that this is a very fun time to be involved and in the community. I also, a couple of closing thoughts before I wrap the video. I realized as I was trying to catch up on comments that I'm not going to be able to catch up on comments. I'm sorry. So I'll do what I can. But the good news and the flip side of that, and kind of the reason for that, is I'm getting more views. I've got more subscribers than I've ever had. And in fact, for somebody who doesn't even promote the channel, that's a great sign, I think, of sentiment shifting, maybe more eyes and people becoming aware of NIO. But also, I think only about half of my viewers are even subscribed. So again, these are all little tiny indicators as I see them for sentiment shifting. At the bottom of the screen, I've got the 3 short-term stock price indicators: the trade volume, the FTDs, and the sentiment. As sentiment shifts, as we maybe have more of these bigger trade volume days, it's going to be harder and harder for the shorts, even with elevated FTD levels, to suppress or mess with the stock price. And so that's why even if or when we see days like we've seen a couple of lately, where there were some suspicious things maybe going on, I don't know that it's going to matter. I don't think the shorts can maintain control if the volume remains there and then as sentiment shifts. And those do align beautifully with what NIO is about to do with, let's say, monthly delivery record. Let's say hopefully some surprises in the earnings, and specifically with margins getting better. Let's face it, the one-time cost of developing the chip, which according to William Li was about the equivalent of putting 1,000 power swap stations out, that was like a one-time cost. They will not have that much cost again. And so that is one thing that basically now that's done. And there will be other costs, but they won't be anywhere near the level that that was. And so that's, again, the nod to NIO as a true IDE and hopefully the unicorn company that I think they are. But I knew this would be a longer video. I will create the chapters and have them down in the comments or in the description. Also, I will make sure and link that video that I shared before because I think it's going to be where I'll just continue to sort of nestle or add more shorting, data, resources, references, links, things like that. So in any event, thanks for sticking around to the end. I know some of you did, in fact, make it to the end. So Wayla, have a great day or night whenever you see this. I'll see y'all again very soon.